Welcome back to our exploration of Dr. Sarah Jones's research on strategic pay practices. In part 1, we examined the research framework and key findings from her study of 302 UK private sector organisations. We discovered that while there is some alignment between pay practices and organisational characteristics, the relationships aren't as straightforward as traditional theories suggest. In part 2, we'll explore the implications of these findings, introduce Sarah's innovative dynamic contingency model, and examine how contemporary developments are further validating her conclusions. Before moving to implications, it's important to acknowledge certain limitations of the research. The cross-sectional nature of the study provides a snapshot rather than tracking changes over time, and while the sample of 302 organisations was substantial, its composition may limit generalisability to other contexts. Future research could explore how these relationships evolve longitudinally, examining how changes in pay practices affect outcomes over extended periods. Based on her findings, Dr. Jones proposed what she calls a dynamic contingency model that moves beyond the limitations of both universalistic and alignment perspectives. This model acknowledges that while business strategy has the strongest influence on pay practice selection, other factors like employment group characteristics also play important roles. However, the connection between aligned pay practices and HR performance outcomes isn't as straightforward as previously theorized. Sarah's research indicates that despite organisations selecting pay practices that align with aspects of their internal and external environment, there is no compelling evidence that this alignment consistently leads to positive HR performance outcomes. This challenges a fundamental assumption in strategic pay theory. The dynamic contingency model proposes that multiple competing pressures influence pay decisions, with organisations often navigating trade-offs between different objectives rather than pursuing a single, theoretically optimal approach. So what does this mean for HR professionals and reward specialists? For practitioners, there are 3 critical insights. First, while certain individual pay practices do positively influence HR outcomes, simply copying best practices without considering your specific context is unlikely to deliver optimal results. Second, even a carefully aligned pay strategy may not produce expected outcomes due to the complex interplay of numerous organisational factors. The research found no compelling evidence that organisations benefit from strategic pay alignment in terms of HR performance outcomes. Third, pay practices need regular reassessment as both internal and external contingencies evolve over time. The dynamic nature of these relationships requires an adaptive approach rather than rigid adherence to theoretical models. Since Sarah's research was conducted, several important trends have emerged in the strategic pay landscape that further validate her dynamic contingency perspective. Recent evidence shows that COVID-19 has accelerated the shift towards flexibility in pay structures, with greater emphasis on well-being benefits alongside financial compensation. Organisations are increasingly adopting performance-based rather than presence-based compensation models in response to remote and hybrid work environments. We're also seeing a growing trend of organisations integrating environmental, social and governance metrics into their compensation systems, particularly for executive pay. This represents another dimension of complexity beyond the traditional strategic alignment factors. For reward practitioners, Sarah's research suggests a more nuanced approach to pay design. First, adopt an evidence-based mindset by testing assumptions about what works in a specific context rather than relying solely on theoretical models. Second, consider multiple stakeholder perspectives when designing pay systems, including employees, managers, shareholders, and customers. Third, implement regular review cycles to assess whether pay practices are delivering desired outcomes and adjust as needed. Fourth, develop hybrid approaches that balance different strategic objectives rather than pursuing theoretical purity in pay system design. Dr. Jones's research offers a fresh perspective on the complexities of strategic pay, moving us beyond simplistic frameworks toward a more realistic understanding of how reward systems actually function in complex organizational environments. Her dynamic contingency model becomes even more relevant today as organizations navigate increasingly complex workforce arrangements, technological disruption, and shifting employee expectations around compensation and benefits. You'll find influences arising from this research in the latest edition of our Reward Management textbook. And in a forthcoming Rewarding Conversations video, we discuss with Sarah her career journey and how she's applying these insights in her role as an academic leader. As you think about your own organisation's approach to pay, ask yourself, are you acknowledging the true complexity of compensation decisions rather than seeking overly simplistic best practice or pure alignment solutions? And how might you adapt your approach to address emerging trends like ESG integration and skills-based compensation? Thanks for watching this episode in our Reward Management series. If you found this valuable, please subscribe for more evidence-based insights into effective HR and reward management practices.